Hello there. Welcome to another episode of The Imperfect Prophet with me, your host, Wonder Wendy. I don't know about you, but often at the end of the day, I like to put on something comfy, have a lovely beverage, and talk to a friend or just reflect on the day. I'm going to talk to you because my friends are largely on the East Coast in a different time zone. So I'm not going to wake them up to have a conversation. So let's do a little reflection together. Today, I was watching baseball playoff seasons. So there's a lot of baseball we watched. Exciting this year. And I was thinking about how many games I sat at this year when I was filled with dread. Yes, dread that my team might not win, or the next batter might cough it up, or the pitcher might blow the game. All sorts of things to wonder about because we are women who wonder. But also thinking about all the games that I sat there and I was worried that something would go well. I know that sounds contrarian. Why would I worry that my team would do well? I'll tell you why. Because when something exciting happens at a baseball game, the fans all jump up. It's seemingly simultaneous, and a rush of high fives happen throughout the stadium. That should be a good thing, right? Unfortunately, I've had a little curse in my life. I'm not good at the high five, or at least I thought I wasn't. Every time this rash of high fives would start, I would desperately try to avoid eye contact with people because I was terrified somebody was going to high five me. And whenever I would attempt to high five, I looked like I suffered a neurological disorder. I can't describe it any better way. And I'd be trying to hit their hand and I just barely miss, or the timing would be off. No matter what happened, it always seemed awkward. And I became convinced that there are people who are good at high fives, and there are people like me who couldn't do a high five to save their life. Nope, can't do it. Can't do it. It's not my gift. So I was always worried about doing a high five. And you know what? It actually took away from my enjoyment of the game, believe it or not. Worrying about my team doing so well that I'd have to high five and look silly took away from my enjoyment of the game. Now, ironically, near the end of the season, I told a young friend about that, said, I just can't high five. I can't. I don't know why. There's so many things I'm talented at, but a high five eludes me. And she said, "You a trick, don't you?" What? There's a trick? Nobody's told me there's a trick to this. Certainly, I want to know this. And she says, you look at their elbow. And when you look at their elbow, it works. She must be making that stuff up. No way is that the answer. She says, try it. And she raises her hand. And I look at her elbow. And for the first time in ever, wow, do I sound like a valley girl or something there? Okay, the first time ever, I make perfect high five. Wow. You think this isn't an innate skill that I just missed the boat on? There's actually a method to doing an appropriate, proper high five. Maybe proper high five isn't the right word, but not looking like an idiot when you do it. And guess what? Ever since, hey, I'm high fiving just about everybody because I can do it now. I'm to the young woman who taught me how to do a high five. But then I realized upon reflection how much happiness I lost being convinced of the fact that I couldn't do a high five, which led me to think about living the bucketless life. Because as I believe life is for embracing, it's for grabbing, it's for enjoying. And yet here I was being robbed of enjoyment because of something I believed I couldn't do. I bet there are a lot of things we all do or don't do that we're convinced are out of our realm, that we're terrified of. And instead of saying, I don't know how, would you help me? We let our lives be governed by the fear of looking stupid, of looking less than perfect, of any number of things. Maybe that's the very definition of anxiety. You get so trapped in the fear of what could go wrong that you no longer succeed or don't even try to succeed. And to be a bucket lister, we have to find ways to rise above that. Interesting thought, huh? Now, this is not to diminish anxiety attacks. It is a different thing when you have an anxiety attack. I may have had them younger in my life, but I remember at one point in my 20s, I've mentioned my traumatic pregnancy losses before. and how that really affected me. And I was in the grocery store and I'd filled my grocery cart. I hadn't filled it, but I'd done most of my grocery shopping. I had a cart, a whole bunch of stuff in it. And all of a sudden, I was just crippled with fear. Crippled. Like I wanted to run to my car and forget the groceries and just hide. It was the strangest, drowning feeling. And I didn't remember ever feeling that way before. It was really scary. I didn't run. I stood there and I gripped the handle of the shopping cart and debated what I was going to do. Was I going to run away? But if I ran away, I'd still have to come back at some point to get groceries. Didn't want to face that again. Somehow I navigated that moment 30 something years ago and managed to get the groceries and not run out of the grocery store. But panic attacks are real. So don't let me diminish that. But do let me encourage you to look for solutions to those panic attacks. One of my daughters suffered panic attacks when she was younger and actually saw a therapist about it. I know I've talked about therapy before. Not all therapists are equal. Find one that works for you. Find the therapy that works for you. This therapist was wonderful. She suggested all sorts of self-soothing methods, including just tapping on the wrist, which sounds so simple, but it does provide a different focus until that moment of panic passes. And then you can think of better solutions or just hang on to something like I did that shopping cart handle. Panic is real, but don't let it govern your life. Don't let it rob you of joy and happiness. Because as a bucket lister, I want you to be as happy as possible and to find ways to get beyond those moments. Interesting, isn't it? I've talked about going over the edge of a cliff to go rappelling, over the edge of a building, which is like going over a cliff, and how my legs wouldn't listen to me for a little bit. It happens. But how do we get beyond that and live the life we want? Another one of my daughters, I didn't realize had a fear of heights when I took her climbing Camelback Mountain. I might have chosen a different activity that day if I'd known about her fear of heights, but we were climbing Camelback. We got partway up, and this is before they improved the trails. The trails are a lot nicer now. And there was this one spot on the trail as you were climbing up the mountain that it looked like the trail dropped away. It was rather terrifying. And you had to hold on to this tree branch and take a step up to the other side. Once you got there, it was terra firma. Everything was great. If you looked down and realized if you didn't complete that step, it was a completely different vision. My daughter had that vision and she panicked, totally panicked. She was flat against the wall in tears. Mom, I can't do this. Mom, I can't do this. Mom, I can't do this. And I knew she could. I knew if I could do it, she could do it. So I took her by the hand and I looked her in the eye. I said, you're going to look in my eyes and you're going to follow me. And you're not going to look down and you're going to listen to what I tell you to do. We're going to get over this together. So I took her hands and turned her around, which meant I had to go more or less backwards. Again, maybe not one of the smarter things I've done, but I did it. And I took the step, kind of holding onto the tree, holding onto her hands, and I got to the other side. And then I lined my body up and took back her hand and put one hand on the tree and got her to take that step towards me. And she got there. Now, it took a lot more time to actually do that than it's telling me to tell you this story, but we did it. And we continued up. We didn't get all the way to the top, but we went pretty far up the mountain. And the beautiful part is on the way back down, thank goodness, that step is nowhere near as terrifying. For whatever reason, it was an optical illusion, and that step was really short when we were coming down the mountain. And we got down the mountain, and when we were done, and we were ice cream is our reward, because I know a place that has bacon ice cream. Yeah, let me say it again. Bacon ice cream, people. If you're nice to me, I'll tell you where it is. But we went and ordered bacon ice cream and we talked about our experience. And she said, Mom, I am so glad that you made me do that. Made me might be a tough word, but I got her over that hump. She said, if I'd stopped, I wouldn't think I could ever do that. But because you've got me to do it, I know that I can now. Still don't like heights, but I'm glad that you got me to do that. So yeah, sometimes we just need help. We need someone to teach us how to do a high five. We need someone to hold our hands when we need to take that big step. But we also have to believe in ourselves. And when it came to high five, I didn't believe in myself. And when it came to taking that step, my daughter didn't believe in herself. I want you to believe in you. I believe in you because you want a bucketless life. Otherwise, you wouldn't be listening to this. You wouldn't be saying, Wendy, I wonder about things. Let's talk about it. Let's reach for a better life together. And just because you're listening, I believe you have what needs to happen to get over that hurdle. I'm here for you. It'll happen. So we have to get over our fear. Talked about fear before. It's always going to be there. There are scary things out there. There's way too many scary things out there, but there are also lots of positive things. And we need to focus on those positive things. I've often heard it said for every negative interaction, you need 5 positive interactions. Is this science? I don't know, but I've heard it a lot. So I'm going to believe it. And this happens in our relationships. This happens in our workplace. This happens if you're hit once, you need to be loved 5 times to make up for it. Now, one scary experience, you need 5 positive experiences to make up for it. But you know what? The other thing that happens is we spend a lot of time focusing on that one negative thing that happened. That's why it takes so much positivity to overcome it. So instead of focusing on the negative at the end of the day, like I could dwell upon the fact that I missed out on a lot because I was so worried about the high five. But I can also give thanks for Stephanie for teaching me to look at somebody's elbow so that now I can be happy when somebody wants to high five me. Getting a high five no longer causes me fear. Isn't that great? So I'm thankful for Stephanie. I'm thankful for the high five. I'm thankful for the home run. I'm thankful for a glass of wine. I'm thankful that you want to listen and you want to change your life and you want to live a better life because we need more people trying to do better. No, I'm not saying do better. That's a whole different conversation. Let's not go there, shall we? I'm saying that if every one of us tries to live our best life, if every one of us focuses on a little bit more positivity instead of what's negative, that our world would be a better place. Because you know what? When you're in a better mood, you smile. Do you know what happens when you smile? The next person you meet and you smile at, chances are you're going to melt their day too. Many years ago, okay, maybe not so many years ago, but maybe as much as 20 years ago, walked down to the parking lot and I saw a young woman sitting against the tire of a car in the parking lot. Not a comfy place to sit. Thankfully, it wasn't in Arizona where you'd be searing your ass sitting on the pavement. It was back in Vermont. She looked really sad. She looked like she wasn't having a really good day. She also looked a little bit like a rebellious youth, and I could have decided she was trouble. I could have ignored her. I could have walked the other way because I was afraid of her. Something made me walk up to her. I didn't get so close that if she was carrying a knife, she could have done anything to me, but I got close enough that I made eye contact and looked at her and said, is everything okay? And I said it with a smile. She looked up. At first, I wasn't sure which way things were going to go. And then she said, yeah. And then she smiled and said, thanks. Now, I'll never know the rest of her story unless she happens to see this podcast and send me a message on social media. But I've always imagined that she was having a bad day. Who knows for what reason? Who knows what was about to happen? But in my mind, that interaction made her change the path of her trajectory. You know what they say about those comets out in space? That one little nudge can change their direction like light years because every angle shoots out in a continuous angle. And if it's going this way, you do it this way. For the first few feet, it's not much of a change, but as you go further and further, it's a big change in direction. A couple of years ago, NASA sent up a rocket to run into a comet to change its direction. Now, as we've spent our lives wondering if we'd be hit by a comet and have another ice age, this is pretty good science, in my humble opinion. They hit the comet, they nudged the comet, and they changed the direction of a comet, an asteroid. I don't know, I'm not a science person, but they changed its direction, big piece of rock flying through space in a set direction, and they moved it. So think about what we can do with a little bit of positive energy, nudging things, changing things, responding differently to situations. Instead of freaking out saying, what can I do? How can I change things? Just this afternoon, we were talking about an incident that happened in 2009 when the minor league baseball park that we spent a lot of time at announced that baseball might pull out of that park because it needed a lot of improvements. And we knew that the person who owned the team didn't own the field, but couldn't afford to make all those investments in the park on a year-to-year lease, especially when the owner of the park, the university that owned The field no longer had baseball. It didn't have any reason to keep it as a baseball field. At that point, the university had great incentives for the baseball team to fail so that they could then turn it into dorms, parking lots, any number of things that would have greater financial value to the university. And people started asking, what are we going to do? And I said, what are we going to do? And suddenly I had a plan. We created a media campaign. We created a petition. I ended up talking on many television stations to try and save the baseball team, to save the baseball field. The oldest continuously operated baseball field in baseball. It had been there for a long time. It's called Centennial Field, and it was named Centennial Field after 100 years of baseball a long time ago. We started this campaign, and apparently I didn't know failure was an option because I just kept charging. And before we had to present the petition, before we had to do anything more, the university realized the public really wanted baseball there and gave a much longer lease to the owner of the baseball team, who could then afford to put more money into the field, to make it a better experience, to make it safe for the players. And Major League Baseball left baseball there for many more years. So sometimes just not knowing you can fail actually, oh, what's the expression? Fake it till you make it can make a big difference. I want us all to fake it till we make it. I want us all to swing to the fences. I want us to try and eliminate world hunger. It's probably never going to happen. There have always been hungry people. Unfortunately, there probably will always be hungry people. But if we work on better solutions, better agriculture, better food conveyance systems, better sharing in places where people don't have what they need, or to help them get what they need, maybe we can make a difference. That's what I mean about just trying. And if we all try just a little bit, we can make a difference together. It wasn't money. It wasn't power. It wasn't anything other than sheer human will in gathering together other people that love the sport that kept baseball at Centennial Field for many more years to come. It's a beautiful field. I visited there this summer. Baseball is still being played there, even though it's not professional baseball. And I'm not involved there anymore. But guess what? It's still going on. It's glorious. So I want you to live your best life. I want you to think like there are no limits. I want you to try. Guess what? You're going to fail sometimes. Sometimes you're going to fall. Try not to do something stupid. Hang on to the tree when you're stepping over the gap, because anything else is rash and foolish. But try. You know what you can accomplish is going to be great. I'm so excited to see what you can do. I'm Wonder Wendy. I'm an imperfect prophet. I'm not a role model, but I am going to ask the questions that matter and ask you to do the same thing. I want to wonder with you. I want a life full of wonder. I want a wonderful life. So until next week, enjoy your beverage, whatever it might be. Again, no judgment. It's the end of a day for me, and I'm enjoying a lovely glass of wine. But if you're drinking tea or water, whatever floats your boat, but stay hydrated. Until next week, I look forward to hearing from you. Go to my website, wonderwendyandfriends.com. There's a number of ways to connect with me there. Or go to my Facebook group, the Wonder-Full Bucket List Life. I really do want to have a conversation. I want to hear about what's held you back and how you got over it. Or maybe you can put out there what's holding you back and ask other people for help. I'd love these conversations. Until then, have a great week.